Yes, everyone, you know what time it is. It's your boys, Jack and Dave here, and we're going to be talking about the decision day that is coming, the decision day for Bayern Munich, the decision day for Daniel Levy. But it could be the case that Harry Kane might have made a decision of some kind. It's just come out from Dan Kilpatrick of the Evening Standard here, everybody, that Harry Kane is planning to stay at Spurs if no agreement with Bayern Munich or anyone else is reached before the opening game of the season against Brentford in less than 2 weeks' time. Spurs, though, are not setting a deadline on deciding his future, from Dan Kilpatrick of the Evening Standard. And we all know Florian Plettenberg had to have a say as well. He had to fire back, and he said, understand that Bayern package is around 95 million euros now, with the possibility of add-ons included. Kane could get a contract until 2028 with options included. No doubt he would become the top earner of the club. He would replace Mane with it. No new meeting between Bayern and Levy scheduled yet, though, but all parties are confident to find an agreement as Bayern plans to improve their offer. Florian Pletten, idiot of Sky Sports Germany. Dave, we're going to be talking about Dan Kilpatrick's kind of bit of news here, as well as Florian Plettenberg's. Maybe what are your first impressions on Dan Kilpatrick, coming out and saying, that maybe Harry Kane could be considering staying if he is going to be suiting up against Brentford? Are you delighted?
Oh, Jack, honestly, I haven't stopped smiling since he wrote it. It's an article that makes me happy today, but it's also an article, though, Jack, that sort of makes me or reaffirms my belief for what I've been saying all along, that it's up to Tottenham to, match the ambitions of Harry Kane. And in the article, it also went on to say that the reason why Harry Kane doesn't want to move on after the Brentford game if there's no deal reached is that he believes it's unfair on the club and Ange Postecoglou to leave after the start of the campaign. So people question this guy's loyalty. I mean, that's loyalty right there. He didn't have, I presume this has come from him or one of his representatives, and that didn't have to be put out there. And what I love most about it, Jack, is that Harry Kane is the one setting the deadline. The club have refused to do it, but Harry Kane has come out and set that deadline. Now, whether it's to put more pressure on Bayern Munich to stop pissing about and actually stump up the fee that Daniel Levy wants, or whether it's a final sort of plea to Daniel Levy to go and get the centre backs in and get the rest of the business we need so that, he can sign on the dotted line. And it also goes on to say that if he does sort of remain here, Jack, that there is a good opportunity that if the first few games go well, that Harry Kane will renew his contract. So for me, it just gives me absolutely renewed hope, especially yesterday when there was lunchtime talks between Jan Christian Dresen, the chief executive, and Marco Nappe, their technical director. They went back sort of empty-handed again. We were told that they were miles apart in evaluation. Now, I know Plettenberg is saying they're going to come back with 95 million. And look, if they do come back anywhere near that, look, there's still time for them to get the deal done, but the clock's ticking, and I'm very, very happy that Harry Kane has come out and set the deadline.
Yeah, that's an important point that you just made there, that a deadline of some kind maybe has been established. And we did speak about that, maybe one of the few other videos that we've done on this whole Harry Kane saga, and I think I even spoke about it at length with Mia over from Spurs Between the Lines, that actually what sort of the fans really do want is some sort of deadline coming from some type of party, whether it be Bayern, whether it be Harry Kane, whether it be Levy. We kind of wish it came from Levy because that would kind of give us the most kind of sense of control. But at least with Bayern, kind of being, told by at least Harry Kane that he's not going to be entertaining any more interest if he suits up against Brentford, kind of puts some sort of pressure on them. It also puts some sort of pressure on Levy as well to make sure that he can either keep Harry Kane until that time, or that he has to try to convince Harry Kane, up until this Brentford game, that he has, maybe a future ahead, that he could still win trophies here. So a lot of pressure is on, but, the deadline does give us some sort of clarity. You're absolutely right there. And maybe just to push back a little bit on this news, though, Dave, is Dan Kilpatrick, I mean, he's known to have a bit of a positive lean, I think, or at least he's known to have a bit of a positive lean towards Spurs, likes to paint them in a very nice light, as do I. He's probably a fellow happy clapper like myself from one to another. But what do you think? I mean, is this maybe just him just trying to give us some hopeful news here, or do you think there could be something behind this?
Look, first of all, Jack, I'll stop raining on my parade, right? I'm absolutely buzzing with this article. It's going to keep me happy for the day. But let's be honest about it. Ali Gold, another reputable sort of Spurs journalist, he came out a couple of weeks ago and more or less said the same thing, that, hang on, this isn't just a one-way conclusion where Harry Kane is going to Bayern Munich. Tottenham have put a contract off on the table of, I believe, 450k a week. Now, obviously, Harry Kane ain't going to sign that until he sees progress at this club. So the club know what they have to do. But Ali Gold reported it a few weeks
Yeah.
ago. So I've always maintained that the argument shouldn't be just always cowering down to the bigger teams around Europe and saying, yeah, come in and pluck Harry Kane. The reason why we built the whole stadium was to drive more revenue so that we could compete in the market with these clubs, go and get some of the top players, but also hold on to our best players and build around them. So
Yeah.
selling Harry Kane will go against everything what that whole stadium was absolutely built for. And look, it was also built to help more Spurs fans get inside the stadium and all and everything else. I get that. But mainly it was built so that we could get more revenue to help the way our business, to help our business
Yeah.
model and the way we operate, so that we wouldn't be in this situation. So for me, I've always said it's up to the club to go and do the business to convince this guy to stay. At the end of the day, Jacko, this guy has the same ambitions as the fans. He's sick of losing. He wants to win trophies, and that's all he ever wants,
Yeah.
And look, I'm not going to sit here and say he hasn't had the chance to win trophies at Tottenham, because this guy has had more than enough opportunities. But over the last 4 years, and with the player he's become and how far he's elevated himself in world football, I can understand why he's frustrated over the last couple of years. And for me, when you go back and take the words that he said last January in the build-up to the Preston game, although he didn't break the record, they thought he would. He'd done it against City early Feb. But they'd done an interview ahead of it thinking that was going to happen at the Preston game. And he said, look, I've always wanted to win trophies at Tottenham. That's always been my ambition. That's always been my aim. So for me, all is not lost yet, Jack. And I'll be honest, I hope on this situation and this situation alone, Daniel Levy remains Daniel Levy for the next 2 weeks. Because I've always stated keeping Kane is a benefit to this football club. I do not like the narrative that's been spun all summer long, where basically because of ITKs and because of articles being put out there by Pletty Idiot and all his buddies, people sort of have dismissed what Kane brings to this club, what sort of player he is and how good he really is. And I think that's been lost amongst everything that's been happening around them this summer. And I can understand why. However, we all sit here and say, oh, scram, we can get rid of him. Everyone else is going to chip in with the goals. We're not going to get more than 30 shots in a Premier League game like we did in the last 2 preseason games. Did everyone chip in like we expected? No. So for me, Ange Postecoglou, and I'm sure Ange Postecoglou agrees, Jack, that having Harry Kane around makes his job a little bit easier as long as we bring in centre-backs like he originally asked for.
Yeah, but you're now segueing me into some sort of dangerous territory here, Dave, because I feel like with Ange, I said this, like, I feel like we were speaking about this earlier, where I feel like everybody's somewhat relieved by this bit of news, if it is, to be taken as true and valid, that Harry Kane has established some sort of deadline, because the Harry Kane lovers are satisfied, like you and I, that maybe he is, potentially more likely to stay, or at least more likely than we, were thinking yesterday, because, yesterday we were more in the doom and the gloom. But it also gives some sort of clarity to Spurs. It gives some clarity to Bayern Munich. I'm not sure if it gives clarity to Ange yet, because I feel like Ange is sort of still like, well, he might not suit up against Brentford still. Like, they could throw 100 million pounds or 100 million euros, and then Daniel Levy might let him go all of a sudden a week before the season gets kicked off. And who's to say we even have center backs in yet? And then Ange is like, I'm still left in limbo here. With this whole situation about which striker he's going to be putting his arm around. Like, he's already kind of given his faith and, put his arm around Basuma, right? He's kind of already having Basuma calling him Uncle Ange. We want Harry Kane to be calling him Uncle Ange and to be calling him Grandpa Ange. But at this moment in time, it's not like that's being reciprocated, because Harry Kane's future is so up in the air at this stage. So I feel like, yes, maybe Harry Kane has given us some bit of clarity. I'm really thankful for that, actually, for me personally as a fan, but I'm still a little, kind of feel bad for Ange, because I find him to be left a little bit in this limbo. But another thing, Dave, is that this all kind of depends on results. That was something that was kind of brought up there, that Harry Kane would sign that new contract as long as he is being convinced of the results as the pathway as well that Ange is trying to build. If he's being convinced by Ange's rebuild. And we said this before, Ange loves a good rebuild, but he needs the tools to be able to do this. And he's not being given those center backs. And in order to really get results, to actually convince Harry Kane to stay, he's going to need center backs. I don't think it's going to be style of play that's going to get Ange out of this. He needs proper center backs to be able to get the results, to not only convince Kane, to convince the fan base, to convince Daniel Levy as well, to convince the rest of the Premier League. So there's not too much pressure on us from Sky Sports and all those guys, as well as Talk Sports. So it does feel like he could end up, suffering a similar type of struggle that previous managers did if he doesn't get those proper tools in being the center back. So that's also dependent on, for Harry Kane too, is that Harry Kane's going to need center backs to come through the door, because the center backs are going to get us the results. The results get us, that confidence in Ange. With confidence in
Yeah.
Ange, Harry Kane more likely to stay.
Well, look, Jack, you're absolutely right. It is down to result dependency, but we always knew, since Alistair Gold put out that article, but that it's a risk what we're going to take. But as a club, you have to weigh that up. Do you want to take that risk? And for me, I would personally, money isn't an issue at Tottenham Hotspur. I get 100 million is a lot of money, right? But we're the third highest generating sports club ever, in terms of profit, this, that, and the other. So and also, you hear a lot of, oh, well, if we sell Kane, we can bring in centre backs and build the team, this, that, and the other. The rebuild shouldn't be relying on selling Harry Kane. The whole reason why we built the stadium is so that we rebuild around our best players. So it should be a rebuild around Harry Kane. And look, Jack, this brings us on to Daniel Levy and the club. It's now up to them to start showing ambition. There's a protest next week at the Shakhtar game. There's a protest against the first home game against Man United, organised by the Supporters Trust as well. So there's protests popping up left, right, and centre. Even the most happy of fans are all starting to become frustrated now. And the fact that the whole Harry Kane situation is as well. And look, we all know as fans, even if Bayern Munich don't stump up the money and Harry Kane's here come Brentford, he ain't signing on that dotted line unless that back line is changed, because that back line is going to be what cost us results. And you said it perfectly, Jack. Style of play will not get Ange out of this, and it will not get him through a whole season if the results aren't there. And it does not guarantee to keep Harry Kane either. And all we need to do is just get a good backline in, maybe another midfielder, and you're set to go. We have a really good opportunity next year with no Europe to just focus on one game a week, which means even the most dumbest person in our squad has more than enough time to get up to date with tactics and what they're supposed to do. So there's going to be no excuses whatsoever. And it's a brand of football that the fans really can get behind. It's what the fans have been calling for. It's what the fans love to see. They love to be entertained and brought out their seat. So now it's up to Daniel Levy to stop being a mug, get the transfer activity done, and stop relying on interest from other clubs in players we already know are not good enough. At some point, pay up their contracts, which they'll agree to. They'll agree to a certain percentage of it, and just let them go. And so that we can start bringing in business. These players have held this club back in transfer windows, on the pitch, in terms of revenue and European football. How long is Daniel Levy and the club going to let this keep manifesting and throwing every manager under the bus? The sad thing is, we've gone for Pochettino. We brought in Mourinho with huge fanfare behind it. Conte with huge fanfare behind it. Now Ange Postecoglou. And every time we pull the reins back on the transfer window, we will not sign centre-backs, which every other manager has asked for. Ironically, the one centre-back we did sign that has been good enough for Tottenham has been under Nuno. You know what I mean? It's sort of like it's up to the club now to start matching ambitions, because fans are not accepting excuses anymore. They're not taking it. They're getting bored of it. So it's up to the club now to get it done. No excuses. Back Ange and back Harry Kane. Match their ambitions, because let's get this right, Jack. People say Ange Postecoglou here for a rebuild. He ain't here for a rebuild. He's here to win. He's won everywhere he's been. He's won in Australia. He's won in the J League. He's won in the Scottish League. He ain't a rebuild guy. He's a winner, and that's the difference.
Right now, he just doesn't have a lot to even rebuild with, I would say, apart from what he's been given in the attack with Maddison and other players. But my last point would be that if Harry Kane ends up even suiting up against Brentford, that doesn't mean then all of a sudden he's more likely to sign a contract with Spurs. It could be very well the case he could still leave on a freeze. That's where I'm still worried that, is Daniel Levy going to make the same mistake that he's made in previous years, where he has sort of thought that Dyer, Davies, Tanganga, and crew can somehow pull off some sort of miracle for like 6-7 months and try to put in good performances to convince whoever it may be, the manager, the player that maybe is in question of leaving, that there is actually something to believe in at Spurs. And we've seen it before, and it's gotten managers sacked. It's not given us the results that we've needed to have that confidence in the squad, to have that confidence in the manager, to have that confidence in the club. And I'm just worried here that he's spending a lot of time, obviously, on this Harry Kane situation, as he should. But let's say we go into this Brentford game, still don't have the Tapsoba or whatever, star center back that we need to partner Romero, and it is a Dyer or Davies lining up next to Romero. that would more likely then mean to me that Harry Kane is probably just going to go on a free, because that's not going to convince him that there's any sort of pathway to trophies anytime soon. So it's still up to Daniel Levy to dip into his own pocket and try to put players into that team, into that backline, to try to convince Harry Kane with those players in the backline to get the results to convince everybody else as well. So we'll see
Daniel
how they
Levy's
get it
now
done.
at a decision-making point, Jack, that should have been made before Ange Postecoglou even started work here on the 1st of June. And that is, am I going to rebuff Harry Kane offers all summer long and still go and get the business in to try and persuade him? Or am I going to accept the Harry Kane offer and still try and do business, and sort of rebuild the team and probably do it, get a few extra players in along the way with it because of the money? But at the end of the day, I know we're at this point where he's got to make that decision. Do I keep Harry Kane and buy centre-backs and maybe another midfielder and really go for it? Or do I sell, cash in, and go for a full rebuild? He has that decision to make, but let's be honest about it. That decision should have been made back, May, June. It should have been made back then. Ange Postecoglou already told them back then, when he had the meeting to try and take this Tottenham job, he would have told them, I need centre-backs. So they would have known back then when they're in the interviewing process with this guy what they needed. So there's no excuse for it that we're sitting here in this position. But, Daniel Levy now has to start making a decision very soon. The fact that I believe they were talking intricates. Daniel Levy loves his clauses. You probably get a clause for how many times Harry Kane wipes his ass in the Bayern Munich dressing rooms. You know what I mean? 20 million in there for that if he does it 100 times. You know yourself, Jack. He absolutely loves clauses. So, the fact that they're talking intricates makes me think, look, is there a deal on the cards? You just never know. But look, a decision now has to be made, and I'm glad that Harry Kane has took ownership of it and set the set the deadline. So, I think the good thing to come out of this, we'll know over the next few days whether this is really going to happen or not. And it's now in Bayern's court. Stump up the money, give Tottenham something to think about. If not, we'll be celebrating Harry Kane's 30 goals next season yet again.
Everybody, let us know in the comments down below what your thoughts are in this situation. Let us know whether you think Daniel Levy is going to come through and be able to convince Harry Kane and us, everybody else, that there is actually some sort of pathway to maybe getting a Harry Kane contract sometime soon, and also just, getting this rebuild started in the right way. Hit that like button if you did enjoy this video. As well, feel free to grab a membership if you do want to support the channel and all the extra stuff that we're trying to do behind the scenes here. And as well, feel free to check out, the membership link if you do want to see any sort of explanation on all the various, kind of perks and benefits that you can get with those memberships. But everybody, we'll be seeing you. Come on, you Spurs. In the big Ange we trust.
In Ange we trust. In Harry we trust.